Gonna make the profiles boom, 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 boom. It's what they is. You already know what it is right here today on Gunner's Profiles. It's some of that real talk, man, a real story, real klecha, real game, man. Knowledge you definitely won't get in college. What it isn't is added preservatives and fakery. We ain't doing that today. Now, trip out on this. A lot of people ask me, hey, Gunner, have you ever been settled with someone famous? Or Gunner, have you ever did time on the yards with famous people? And I have. There's been several individuals in passing that I didn't even know, I guess, had some notoriety to their name. They used to be a rapper or, used to be a clapper or a hitter or had a kind of a notorious case. And I guess you can consider them semi-famous or of celebrity status. I think every yard in every California prison has one or two of them individuals. They're pretty well known, for what they've done. Doesn't mean what they did was great. If they're locked up for it, it wasn't a great thing. But at the same time, they're pretty known for what they've done. Now, I remember doing time in county jail. It was 1998. I'm locked up in the county jail. I'm doing a little bit of time. I'm facing prison. So I'm on my way. But I'm fighting my case. So I'm going to have to sit down for a minute or two and eat a manwich, county jail style, right? So I'm sitting there doing my thing, eating my sopitas, getting my sopitas ready. And I like to read books. One thing about prison or county jails is when you're down and you're doing time and you're sitting your ass down, you try to absorb as much education as you can. Educational books are always on the forefront. They're always the number one if you can get them. History books, cultura books, things that'll stimulate your mind and take you up outside of that cell where you're locked up in. But every once in a while, I like to read books like Sidney Sheldon books, Anne Rule, Jackie Collins, Harold Robbins. These are some of my favorite authors. When it comes to nonfiction or fiction, just kicking back. And I like true crime. True crime is one of my favorites. So Anne Rule was the top of my list when it came to authors. Her as well as Sidney Sheldon. Now rest in peace, Anne Rule. She's no longer with us. She passed, I think, in the year 2015. But prior to that, she was writing a lot of good books. Now this woman was based up out of Seattle, Washington. So a lot of her books had to do with the Northwest and California. She did books about Ted Bundy. She did books about a lot of notorious serial killers or people that had serial killing type crimes, things of that nature. So I like to read them because not only included in her books was a lot of details and a lot of things other people didn't know. She got in depth, but also there was pictures, crime scene photos, things of that nature. So it stimulated the mind into reading what goes into these psychopathic mind, these crazy people, what goes into their minds and the reason they do the things they do. I said they do the things they do. Guard! She had a screw loose too. But I liked Anne Rule. So I remember I was kicking back one day, and I remember that day me and my celly were getting down on some sopitas. We're going to bust us a little county spread. Now, county spreads are different from prison spreads. You only have the bare necessities. You don't have all the extra special zuzus and wham whams and things of that nature on mine. It just ain't there. What you have is your basic sopas. Whatever you can get on cantina, and our canteen wasn't extensive. It was just basically soups, chips, a little bit of hot sauce, a little bit of cheese. Oh my. We were going to make it work, man. We had saved our dinners. We had meatloaf that night, so we were chopping them down. A little bit of meatloaf, a little salad. Throw it up in the spread. Whip it up one time for your mind. Toma, burrito, right? So I remember my celly was getting down with it. He was a cool dude, man. Knew it, had been down extensively. He was fighting a murder case at this time. And I was actually fighting an assault robbery where they said I tried to steal a motherfucker's hat, but I didn't. But it is, everyone's going to say they're innocent, they're innocent, they're innocent. At this point, I was. But I'm fighting my case, and I'm looking at prison time. I'm just waiting to be sentenced. I'm now convicted. So my sentencing was going to be in a couple more weeks. Anyways, I'm kicking back. We're about to eat our food and chill and try. We had one of those cells in the county jail where they had a TV in the day room. And if you caught the right angle, you were able to watch a little bit of TV. Couldn't hear it, but you could watch it. And I knew my favorite show, How to Be a Millionaire, was going to be on. And guess what? I probably will never be a millionaire. I don't want to think down upon myself, but I was trying to see how I could be one. So I was going to watch Howie do his thing. And so it was going to be a good night. Your typical night in county jail. Ain't nothing too much going on. Done did my workout. Done took my bird bath or my shower. Done went to the day room, man. Programmed for a little bit. Hit a little pinochle one time for their mentality. Got them for whatever sopas I can and bounced back to the cell with me and my celly. And we're chilling. Now we had this neighbor. He was pretty quiet. He looked like he was to be Asian, Cambodian, Vietnamese, something of that nature. I never really talked to him much. They kept him secluded. From what I had heard, he had come back fighting a case. Now, he was, of course, fighting a murder case. So I never really got at him like that. There were no other Asians on the street. I know other Asians in this building. So there wasn't no one really for him to function with. So he kind of just minded his own, or his own reminded him. And he was on single cell status, I remember, and he hardly ever came out to the day room. Never went out, because we had this day room, but we also would go out to the basketball. They would, every once in a while, maybe once or twice a week, they let us go play basketball, handball, things of that nature. They tell us to go play handball with a basketball. It was that bad. County jail sucks. Anyone that's been there, they know what's up. It doesn't matter what county jail, they're all basura. So anyways, he was the neighbor, and he was very quiet. So I never tripped on him. You know, but I would see him when he would walk to showers, or I would see him every once in a while when I did go to the day room. He was always pacing back and forth in his cell. Never seemed out of the ordinary, just seemed your typical dude. You know, he had done some time. Of course, he was in prison and got brought back, maybe for an appeal, or maybe he got more charges. I don't know. Like I said, I paid it no never mind, because it was none of my business at this particular time. But I was going to make it a little bit of my business as the wind blew. So I remember I'm kicking back. We just busted our spread. We got down. It was good food, man. We're trying to watch, of course, How to Be a Millionaire. That didn't work out quite well. The Blackas turned the TV off on us, told us, take your punk asses to your racks. It's count time. We did count time. And I remember the reason why this story got brought to my attention was the Blackas actually stopped at his cell. This guy wouldn't sit up. Now, in the county jail, they want you to sit up at the end of your bunks or stand up to, you know, so that they can see that you're moving, so that you're alive, that your cellie hadn't put the choke down on you, the choke slam on you, and ended your career. So of course they'd say, count time. We'd sit at the end of our bunks, hurry up, la-di-da-di, do your thing, because we like to potty. And as soon as they would walk by, man, we'd get back to our domino game or our card game or whatever we had done to keep our minds going. Now, of course, this particular night, gente, I was going to settle all my ass down to read a good book, which was a book by Ann Rule. I can't remember the name of it right off the top of my head, but I know it did have to deal with the Northwest and about a serial killer that was up there killing women, right? So I'm kicking back, and they stopped at this Asian guy's cell, and they had words with them. This officer had words with them because he didn't want to sit up or stand up. They told me, you have to stand up. He told me, go get the fuck away from my cell. Ain't gonna happen. So they went back and forth for a good, seemed like 5 to 7 minutes. And eventually he stood up or whatever, or waved the arm, and they did it push and counted us and did it on down the tier. Typical normal day in the county jail. People are fighting the feeling. They come in, they're all malias, they're all, spun out. You're just going to have a lot of different attitudes, a lot of different people tripping. Now, it's all about a respect factor. So on the tier, man, it's us versus them, meaning us versus the Blackas. We're not going to woof, or if this Vato slowing down the program, that's on him. There will be repercussions for his actions if he messes up our program, but we're going to get to that later on. See, when a Vato's getting in an argument with the cop, that's their business. Everybody wants to hear it. Everybody wants to be metiche and see what's going on, be nosy. That's what that means. But no one's really going to participate in yelling or screaming for the most part, depending upon where you're at. So me and my cellie hear this little argument between these guys, and I'm like, damn, this Asian guy, that's the most words I ever heard him say. He's usually pretty quiet. He had a deeper voice, but didn't get too loud. Just told the Blackas, do it pushing, man. He wasn't one of them days he wanted to be messed with. And whatever. They did the count, bam, push. So I remember opening up this book. I told my cellie, I'm going to read a little book and shit. He was like, cool, no cards tonight. So he settled down to read his little magazines. And I got really into this book. Now, I was about halfway through this book, and this book entailed about this Asian guy, this Asian American guy that actually was setting women up. He lived close to a tavern or a bar, and he lived in a trailer court, which was adjacent to this bar. What would happen, gente, orale, adjacent, I'm using big words. What he would do, and this is kind of a profile on this guy, so you guys can go back and strike that, reverse it, do some fact checking if you need to. But anyways, what this guy would do was he would go to this bar, and he had a mobile home in the back of this mobile, he lived in a fucking trailer park, but it was very close to this bar. I forget the name of the bar. I think it was called Checkers or something. It was at the corner of a street. And this bar was frequented a lot by a lot of homeless people and a whole bunch of women, women that were down on their luck and they just wanted to. So he seen it as an opportunity to go in and out and actually knock these women. Now, of course, he wasn't a very striking guy. Was someone that you wouldn't even really notice, kind of short in stature, a little stocky. But again, man, this guy thought he had some type of military background for what I remember of the book. Anyways, he would go in there, and for the first few times he would take women back to his trailer, he always let them go. He would pay them to play them or whatever, or they just went over there out of their own, necessity to feel comforted. And he would handle his business, they would handle their business, and bam, she would leave. It was all good. Eventually, over time, this Vato's mind started to mess with him. I think after he got denied a few times by a few women, he decided that for no other reason, he wasn't going to let him go no more. Okay, the first woman that he took to his pad, he decided that if for no other reason, she was going to stay there. He was going to keep her like some type of fucking a toy or doll. And then he changed her to the wall and he did all this and that. And I want to go into detail because I know YouTube doesn't like them type of things. But he decided to do this. You know, he decided to do this. He eventually did let the woman go. The authorities did contact him. He denied because she was a homeless piruja from the streets. They didn't quite believe her story. They understood something went on. He said, nah, she came. She gave me a little domolio and that was it. You know what I mean? I can't help it. My shit's only like this. You know what I mean? She wasn't happy. I wasn't satisfied and so on and so on. But the Placas had him on their radar because there was women that were coming up missing in the area, I guess, for some time. Now, this had nothing to do with this guy. This was a whole different Vato doing a whole bunch of different things. But because this guy had this case brought up against him, he was now all point bulletins. They were watching him. Put it like that. So in his mind, he decides to start doing this again. Eventually, one thing leads to another, and he kills his first victim. Okay, it took 2 or 3 women later before they did end up catching up to him and getting him. They get him. It was a pretty big case in the area because people didn't see it coming. You know, this guy, like I said, would frequent the bar all the time. Women would leave with them, but you know, no one notices. The bartender ain't really tripping until they start to do their investigation. You know, the Placas detectives, oh my, and there it goes, and boom, it was the little Asian guy. He did that shit, Mao Lao, or however they say it, right, Macau. And so he bounced. Anyways, they end up catching this guy, and he gets caught up. And of course, man, he goes through trial. He goes to prison, and when he goes to prison, there's several more murders. He admits to about 10 more. And there's one that was a real high notorious case out of, I think it was Visalia, California, if I'm sure, that he also had admitted to, that he was involved in that. So he became known as a serial killer. Okay, he was a serial killer. He was killing these women, man. I guess he had a fetish. He liked the way feet smell. I don't know whether it was a foot fetish or something else, but he was taking it upon himself, man, to definitely and basically kidnap and kill these women that were going back out of their own free will. But once they're there, he wasn't letting them go anywhere. Now, as I'm reading this book, again, I said Ann Rule had very detailed books. So I'm looking at all the details and the way she described this guy, you know, something in the back of my mind told me, damn, you've seen this guy before. You know exactly who this guy is. But I was like, nah, I don't know who the fuck this dude is, right? I'm reading too much into it. You know, once you start reading a good book, you start living what's going on in there. So I was scared when they were in the trailer and doing their things. I was like, damn, Benson, don't chain me up, right? You start to... you know, live that story. And that's when it's a good story. When it's a good storyteller, you're actually in the moment. You know, a lot of people have told me I'm a good storyteller. And when I tell my stories, it's like they're actually there or in the moment. Because I get so detailed with it in the way I tell it. But that's just me basically laying out the land, laying it out for you. So that way you guys know exactly the surrounding areas of what was going down. And exactly the motivation behind certain aspects and things of that nature. Now, trip out. Spencer, I'm getting real philosophical here. Is that how you say it? Philosophical? I don't know, philosophical or whatever. Spencer, I can't spell or talk. But one thing I do know that is for sure was I knew in the back of my mind I had seen this Vato somewhere. And sure enough, oh no, she didn't. As I turned the page, there was a picture of this Vato. So now he looked a little bit different in this picture, but I knew this fool. And I told myself, hey, trip out, look at this. He said, what? Look at that Vato's fucking glasses. They're all chueco. I said, no, fool, look at who it is. Lo and behold, sure enough, guess who it was? Our next door neighbor. Oh, yes, indeed. I wrote graffiti. And I was like, nah, can't be. It shall not be. His name was Sebastian Shaw. Now, I had heard the black guys next door say Shaw the day before. Get up for count, Shaw. And it always struck me as weird because I had never seen an Asian guy with the last name Shaw. You know, Asians usually are Nguyen or you know, something else. You know, there's a lot of Zhang, or I grew up around a lot of Mongs. So, you know, it was Mua or Zhang and things of that nature. But this Vato's last name was Shaw. Now, I thought he looked a little bit different. And of course, because he was half Asian, half Vietnamese or Cambodian, I don't understand or know exactly what he was. And half white, you know, half American. And so it all came pieced together. So I did one of these. I don't give a fuck. What the guard? They're not looking. Boom, 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 boom. Nothing, right? Quiet. Boom, 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 boom. I had the book open and shit. So I'm going to get the Vato to sign an autograph or something. Hey, bro. He said, what? Now, I understood right then and there that the Vato was a weirdo. Okay, you got to understand the things he was doing to these women were against their will, was against what they wanted to have going on. So automatically, I don't want nothing to do with this guy, but I just want to make sure it's him because as soon as they crack the doors, I'm going to smack his door backwards, right? That's already going through my mind. And that's the type of mentality you have when you're locked up or you're incarcerated and you play by rules and regulations. Was it went from, damn, can it be? Damn, it is, to damn, I'm going to get him. You know, I'm going to make an example out of him. He's a trophy just based on he's in a book. It's right then and there. If we can get action at this guy. And then I quite understood exactly why he wasn't coming to the day room, why when he would go to the showers, he would kind of just in and out, back to his cell. But I knew he would come in and out, so I was like, I'm going to catch him on the in. I'm going to go in, and he's going to get knocked out, right? And my cellie was down. He was like, shit, I'm going to get mine too. You feel what I'm saying? I said, yeah, let's do this, right? So I finally, after pounding on the door, there was a vent. Now, most vents, we were on the bottom tier, so most vents you could talk up and down to your upstairs neighbor or your side-to-side neighbor, depending upon the vent. This was a side-to-side one, so I'm like, hey, Sebastian, quiet. Sebastian, right? Yes, sir. Oh, man, fuck yes, sir. What's happening, man? Is that you? Yes, sir. I said, look, I'm reading a book. He said, that's not me. I said, no, that's you. You just, motherfucking, you think I'm stupid? Just because I'm a Mexican in an essay? That I'm stupid? Now, look, bro, that's you. Hey, what's up, man? What are you here for? He said, I'm on an appeal because I didn't do what they said I did. I said, no, hold on now. You've been convicted of 10 of, you admitted to 10 of them, Vato. He was like, no, see, that girl, she writes books. They're all fake. It's not me. I said, who said a girl wrote a book? Oh, but you know what I mean? He started doing the, he didn't know what to do, started stuttering. I said, all right. I said, hey, I ain't tripping, man. You know, to each their own. That's you, man. Hopefully you win your appeal. Meanwhile, my fucking antennas were going like this. My horns were right behind my antennas. They were on curve status. I was trying to get this individual, right? I had never been in close proximity to someone that was weird like that. And I knew he probably posed a threat just as much as I did. He probably had a big old banger in there. You know what I mean? I didn't at this time, but I had a little radar. Allegedly. So anyways, this guy, I'm like, hey, we ain't tripping off you, man. It is what it is. He goes, can you keep that book off the tier? I said, absolutely, man. Don't trip, man. You know, ain't no one tripping. Well, needless to say, the next day, it was shower day. So we did our showers, and we're waiting. We're waiting, because see, what would happen is they release you to the day room, and that was your time to jump in the shower. You know, we weren't in the oil. We were just in the regular county jail, general population. So when they would pop you out, and how this guy was in general population, one never knows, does one. But he was there. Like I said, it was a different place. It was actually in a different state, so it was able to wiggle a little bit more. So we're right there posted up, sitting outside. We got our towels, our chanclas on. We're about to give this off to the chanclero, right? And he knew better, so he did better. He didn't come out of his cell. So we waited. It took about 3 days till we finally caught up with them. And let's just say we'd have to come out of our cells to get our chow, you know, to get our trays. And then we'd eat right there in the day room, or you could take it back to your cell. That's the way this place worked. Needless to say, he had a fucking piece of jamon on his chin and a big glob of butter from getting beat down with the fucking trays from the thing. And then other people participated too. He had a rough time there. But it did blow my mind that he was actually my neighbor and that he was actually in a book. And it's a small world. You just never know when you're going to be discovered. But I tripped out on it. Again, like I said, he denied. But the proof was in the pudding, man. This guy was a 4-time convicted murderer with 10 more convictions of other stuff. And it was just crazy. He admitted to killing 10 people. He was back on appeal for 1, but come on, man. They wrote a book and did a miniseries about this dude. You know, it was the only time I think that I've ever sat there and actually had a conversation with someone that had killed that many people, other than one other, which I'll be speaking on in the future. But it was just a trip. And I always wanted to ask him, what went through your mind, you sicko? Why did you do this to these undeserving women? Or maybe even if they were deserving of a little pimp slap, why did you go that route, man? Did you need a hug, I say? You know what I mean? Did you need some love? Or, you know what I mean? There's a lot of hotos that put you on the booty, or whatever you want. But why did you go that route? He definitely was a little sinister individual, and it was the way that he looked, you wouldn't even know. He just acted like which way do I go? Which way do I go? A regular dude, but in that mind and behind that veil, lied a monster, you know. And I happened to be that close to one, and I remembered this the other day. This story, you know, homeboy jogged my memory, and so I wanted to bring it to you guys. The day that I was celled up next to a notorious serial killer. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed the story. All facts, all true. Fact check it if you don't believe me, man. His name was Sebastian Shaw. You know what I mean? Caden Poise. Bang, bang. Or how do they say? Case and point. I said it different and opposite. Anyways, go out there, get everything that you want coming to you. You already know at the end of the day, man, the only way to get it is to got it. And that's way, and you got to do it. I can't do it for you. You know what I mean? But what you can do for me, and I fucking highly appreciate it for the algorithm, like and subscribe, hit that thumbs up. If not, you can also hit me with the thumbs down. Heavy's going to be the head that wears my crown. I'm going to continue to strive and struggle for what I truly believe in, and that's bringing you guys some of the realest and illest stories I can here on YouTube, entertaining you, bringing a smile to your face, or maybe some ooh, some ah, some what? You already know what it is. Bust some game. Knowledge you can't get in college. This is the gun. Bang, bang. And in that fashion. Where's my glasses? I can't see shit.